And good morning and welcome to Coach's Corner on 93.7 FM The Mix and 937themix.com. We're here with the head basketball coach of the Wabasee Warriors, Coach Jon Everingham, Coach Caz Szynal here along, and I'm Bill Dixon. Coach, big wins this week. First of all, actually almost a full week ago now, perennial strong team, the Angola Hornets. Those guys have been big and fast for years and years and years. Surprisingly, I think I want to say the biggest school in their conference.
Yeah.
And we did all right up there. We did okay.
Yeah, we did. You know, they do. You know, it seems like their football program has been really solid, and they bring some athletes, you know, to the court. And I think that's what you saw from them. And it was a really nice win for us. You know, we played well and built the lead and did a lot of things well and right. And then had some hiccups, you know, down the stretch there. But I think the people listening are going to have to deal with a few sneezes or coughs, and our voices are not quite there.
The flu's coming around, isn't it?
Yeah, so you have to bear with us a little bit today.
I know when I went and got the COVID shot, I also got a flu shot and a polio shot. No, I'm just kidding.
That's
I had that
a sugar cube, my friend. That was a sugar cube.
Oh, my. Anyhow.
What did you learn at Angola?
Well, I think, you know, one thing is that we scored 34 points in that first half.
Yeah.
And so I think one thing that we learned that maybe we didn't do so much at Fairfield is that we can score points. And, you know, 34 points in a half, I reminded the kids, and I've really been trying to be very positive, you know, with the things that are going on. Anytime you got youth and inexperience, you know, in the locker room, even though we have some guys that are coming back with that are returners and proven guys, we have a lot of guys. It's like we got two ends of the spectrum here, and so really asking our seniors and Caden and Dukes to be patient, you know, let these guys develop. They'll make some mistakes, and we do envision, you know, a basketball team kind of in our head. You know, Coach O'Connell and I, we talk a lot about who we think we can be, and then we have to develop a game plan to get there, you know. And so, you know, one of the things is talking to those two guys, those two seniors, and saying, hey, we think we can be pretty good. We may go through some kind of bumps in the road, and we just got to be really patient with some of these young guys and inexperienced guys. And so the thing that you'll start to see is that we do have some firepower. You know, the pieces of the puzzle are there. You know, we got a couple good shooters. We got some bench play that's been pretty good. And then we got our studs, you know, and so at times, you know, in the Angola game, you could see, you know, some of those things kind of shine through. And 34 points, again, I reminded the guys that, you know, we took our lumps, you know, when I first got here, and I think the first year we averaged 37 points a game. 37 points a game, and it was all we could do to muster those 37 points. And we had, you know, several games. We went to Manchester, I think, my first or second year, and we lost 28-24, you know. Wow. And I think Ben Hoffert had like 22 of those 24. So, you know, the things that we do, when you see a good basketball team on the floor, sometimes they make it look easy, you know. And I thought against Angola, we kind of made it look easy. You know, we scored 34 points and a half in a high school basketball game. That's pretty good.
Early in the year,
especially with the roster that we have. And so I think that's what we probably learned from our team. You know, Fairfield, we came out just maybe a little gun shy and trying not to make mistakes, and the game was maybe a little more slow moving than we liked.
And that's not unusual with young kids either.
No, the bright lights are on.
Well, they're just trying to feel their way into this thing.
You know, one of the big things I noticed, and Bill and I talk about this a lot, is the unselfishness.
Yeah.
I mean, holy cow. And the way they work the ball around. You know, when they're right underneath us, I can see this a lot better. I mean, they look, and I can see where their eyes are, and they don't take junky shots. I cannot think of a bad shot that anyone, I mean, even the three-pointers at the end, they were wide open. It's, hey, we're going to take a chance. Nothing but net. I mean, you know, that's like when the coach, I remember thinking, no, yes, you know. Right. So talk about the unselfishness of these kids.
You know,
all of them.
Yeah, and so I have mentioned our team chemistry in the locker room and the culture of Wabasee basketball right now. And, the type of person we're looking for to join the team, and certainly there's skill and talent involved, but there's also a certain type of person that we're looking for. And
who is that person?
It's if I had to put a name on it, and I hope it's appropriate to say, but it's Keaton Dukes, and it's Cameron Salazar, and it's Ethan Hardy, and
describe that person.
I think you have to be. We have a set of core values, that we live by, that we list in the locker room, and certainly thinking about others first, and working hard, and somebody that's committed to their teammates and the basketball program. I mean, there's a lot that goes into it, and there's a lot of teaching, and there's a lot of learning that goes into trying to teach, the kids what type of person we're looking for, and so what's nice for us is that we've had those kids in the program, the Josh Slayball and the Ben Hoffert, and I'm sure I'm forgetting, some as well, Adam Beer. So we can refer back to those guys because they all know those guys, and so, we have, even last night in a timeout, we mentioned Cameron Salazar,
Wow.
And so it's just a constant kind of teaching and preaching and talking about, things that I watch just as much the reaction from our bench as I do the players on the floor. And so there's so much that goes into creating a basketball team that performs the way they do, and certainly the cohesiveness and the unselfishness that you talked about, Caz, is certainly a big part of that. And so, thinking about others first and not trying to get your points, and being happy for others when they have their success, I think is a huge part of putting 5 guys on the floor that really don't care. They just want to win basketball games. And so we have that. That's a really good sign. That's really good news for us that we have that, guys that will do whatever it takes, and they're very coachable too. So there's times we ask Keaton to do different things. We ask him to score, right, sometimes, and other times we ask him to get the ball to the paint and try to create shots for other people.
Really?
And he's been all in on, those concepts that we're trying to teach. So I think you're seeing that on the floor, in my opinion.
Bill and I also noticed last night the bench. I mean, you put kids in and out, and then when they'd come out, you turn and give them, maybe a 15, 20-second talk about what they did or I don't know. Tell me about that, and then how you get all these kids. You played a lot of kids last night. Yeah,
we did, and you look on our bench, and I'll use the example because I think it's a good example of what we're looking for is a kid like Mason Shoemaker.
Okay. And
he's sitting down there on the bench, and just to be perfectly honest, in the JV games, he doesn't play the whole game. And you think, why is that guy on the varsity bench when he plays only half of the JV game? And the reason is because of the value and importance we put on the team concept, and so his ability to get guys involved in the game when he's sitting over there on the bench is uncanny. And so he brings value to the varsity team. And so you may not see him on the floor at all. Maybe he won't get on the floor. But you watch the film and you watch what those guys are doing on the bench. It's really important, the energy that they provide us, the guys that are actually on the floor. And so, one thing, too, is to mention is and not to be mistaken, is the fact that they want to be on the floor. So if you can imagine being 16, 17, 18 years old and your dream is to be on the floor, right? Those guys are competitive. They want to be out there competing. They want to be on the floor. So it's a hard concept to sell, somebody to say, hey, this is what we need you to do. We need you to sit over there on the bench, be a good teammate, root on the guys on the floor. When in their head, we all understand they want to be out there. And so it takes a special person to kind of buy into whatever role the coach needs you to do. And so I think those are just some examples of things that are going on right now that point to, the sign that we're a cohesive unit right now, 1 through 12.
Coach, I really appreciate too the people when you do check them in and check them out. You and your assistant there, O'Connell, man. you'll say your two things, and then they'll go to O'Connell and he'll say some more, and then they go, yeah. They're all shaking their heads in a very positive way, and it's just a really cohesive team.
Well, I will say this on the radio that probably much like parents go through at home, and I go through it at home, and is when it's time to talk to mom at home, you talk to mom, and when it's dad's turn to maybe talk to your son or daughter at home, and then it's your turn. But there were some plays last night I wasn't real happy with, and you can see me walk towards the end of the bench because I know Coach O'Connell is going to handle that. And you have trust and faith in your coaching staff that they're going to handle that, because I know how they handle certain situations, and it's better than what I do, and so I have to step aside sometimes and let those guys coach, because I know I kind of know their style, and it works with certain players. And
everybody has their roles, including coaches.
Absolutely. Last night we had a player that made a boneheaded play, and I probably wouldn't have approached it the same way some of the other coaches would have, and so I stepped aside. I literally walked down to the end of the bench,
didn't we?
And I allowed those coaches to talk through, and I went down and gave the player a fist bump, and I felt good about it. The coaches got a chance to coach, and they did their job, and it's important for me to do that. So
how positive is that?
Yeah, that's pretty cool.
How positive is that?
Yeah, it's pretty cool.
As we get ready to leave that Angola game, one of the things that really strikes me, and we've talked on it a little bit, is the patience, not just patience on the floor, but with the knowledge that we've got all these young people who are, and by young I mean young people, who are learning everything about varsity basketball. Sometimes that mistake is going to be made.
Yeah.
And that it's a development issue. And the older players, people like Keaton Dukes, people like Weldy, folks like that, people like Robertson, they have to be able to say, that was not the right thing to do, but let's just go get them next time.
Yeah, and look, that's a great question, great point, especially finishing up in Angola, because we had a 17-point lead, and it went fast. That little booger from Angola just started launching threes, and we got rattled, and you could see Keaton Dukes pulling everybody in, and so it was a pretty awesome display of camaraderie on the floor. We were rattled, and so we lost a 17-point lead. They come all the way back and tie it, and we ended up hitting a couple free throws with 8 seconds to go. Those are things that I knew were going to happen this year, and it was going to be a learning experience for us. Here's the cool thing. Here's the super cool thing. Ready?
Ready.
We lost a 17-point lead because we didn't do some things well with our press breaker, right? And we worked on that this week. And what you saw last night at Manchester, we'll talk about it later, but we got a 3-point lead, and you can see the things that we didn't do well at Angola. We did exceptionally well against Manchester. We closed them out. We ended up winning. We were down 7 in the middle of the fourth quarter, and we ended up winning by 7.
Yep.
And we pulled the ball out. We controlled the ball. We made them foul us, and we hit our free throws. We did not do that against Angola. So here's what you're going to see from our team. We're going to get better and better and better each and every game, each and every week, and that's exciting for us.
And we're going to talk about that Manchester game next here on Coach's Corner on 93.7 FM The Mix and 937themix.com. And welcome back to Coach's Corner on 93.7 FM The Mix and 937themix.com as we continue our discussion with Wabasee head basketball coach, Coach Jon Everingham. Coach, last night, Manchester Squires came to the Hardwood TP. Manchester is always an extremely physical team. At TRC, they play very physical basketball down there. But Wabasee showed great poise last night. We bent but did not break and ended up winning the game in quite impressive fashion.
Yeah, I was proud of our guys, obviously. I mean, that's probably an understatement, but we were clunky kind of in the first 3 quarters, just not doing the things that I thought we could do. We weren't executing well. They took a couple things away from us offensively, and we didn't adjust well. And so those are things we're going to have to work on next week, and we won't have enough time to do that for tonight's ball game against West Noble. But next week we'll need to do some things. They did play physical, and even people are starting to understand who we are, and they've seen us on film and done their scouting, but when Maddox hits 6 threes against Angola, they know you can't let that kid get loose or he'll hurt you.
They didn't. They were all over him.
They were grabbing his jersey.
They were.
And
that's just the way Manchester's always played basketball.
Yeah.
And I tell you, I loved it when they were both underneath. When you had the big guys, Robinson and their guy. Yeah, right. Oh my gosh! Yeah. So it was like Bill and I was football on the basketball court.
Yeah, it really was.
Yeah, they brought in a senior. I think he's out for the first time this year. I don't know what his name was, but they brought him in as the hatchet man, and they were trying to rough up a couple of our players, so kudos to them. That's probably not a terrible move on their part in terms of just our offense was just clunky. I don't know if there's a better word to describe it, but we have some adjustments. We start out in one offense, and we had some adjustments that I thought were going to work. But, from a coaching perspective, it makes sense in my mind. I can see it in my mind, and I can see how it's supposed to work. But I can't go out there and play, And so, we had a couple guys that were just a little lost on execution. When we ventured away from our primary offense, we had trouble executing. Just like one guy, just a little bit late. We just couldn't quite get there.
Yeah, it was a timing issue.
It was, and that's normal. It's normal. I wasn't upset with that. I just thought, that's something we're going to have to work on. When somebody takes this away from you, then, we're going to have to move into this particular. So we spend all summer and preseason, and I like to say, from a coaching perspective, it's some of the sayings that you hear around in the coaching fraternity is he who holds the chalk last wins.
Yeah.
Which means coaches, they'll argue till they're blue in the face about their style, and if you try this, we'll do that. But here's the thing, you have to have players that can go execute that. And so I can draw things up in my mind and things that will work, and when you just don't quite execute like you think you can, it doesn't work. And I didn't think it worked for us in the first 3 quarters. We looked clunky. We looked lost at times. We just hung in there long enough to where something started clicking. We moved to a 4-out, 1-in offense in that fourth quarter, get a little more movement. And we did that at times last year too, starting with the Northwood game, and it worked last night. Thank goodness, because we started attacking the basket. Our spacing was better, and they were a little lost, defensively too.
These Everingham kids, they've got a good mom to teach them how to
right.
do these. And they had 4 threes, both of them last night, 2 and 2, and especially at the end. Oh, my gosh. Bill and I were up there, and we were just, when that ball's in the air, your heart kind of fibrillates a little bit, and then when it goes through, it's, wow. That was one of the most exciting things so far this year.
Well, I will brag on one person you mentioned there, my wife. You may remember her from back in the day.
Oh, I do. She was my daughter.
A game or two with
She was the pre-Shauna Zolman, just right. Yes. I think when she was a senior, Shauna was an 8th grader. So just right before Shauna showed up, she was the starting point guard, I think, for 4 years. And she still is, believe it or not. She still is a very good shooter. Picture perfect stroke. And if you go back around the Goshen areas, I'm sure people might say that I could shoot the basketball as well. So the gene pool there in terms of shooting a basketball probably is there for the boys, but they're stroking it right now. They really are getting the ball up in the air. The rotation looks great, and they're knocking them down when they're open. So the teams are going to start. They're going to start really.
Yes.
They had Maddox pegged in last night's game. And so they're going to start realizing, you gotta kind of take away some of the 3-point shots, which is going to be good for our team because it's going to open up some driving lanes for Dukes and Welty and certainly some opportunities for Robertson down in the low post. So
don't you think the timing problems you had last night they're the type of problems that teams in game 3 of a season often have, but by game 13 they're pretty well gone, and by game 18, they are totally gone. Don't you think it was an experience issue and a getting into the season kind of thing? That's what it looked like to me, anyway.
It sure was. I think you're exactly right. And look, it's like a chess match sometimes. When kids, it's a football quarterback, if you think about a football quarterback and the pre-snap read, you're saying, okay, this guy's here, this guy's here. I know nothing about what those reads are or what it looks like or where the linebacker is or the safeties or 2 deep, whatever. I have no idea. But what I do know is basketball, and it's the same thing on the basketball floor, but it happens continuously. So if you're reading a guy in this particular spot or if his feet are positioned, in a certain way guarding you, then you have to move into this. So, and it takes 2 and sometimes 5 guys that read the same thing, and then the motion occurs based on a read that you have, based on a player that reads it. And so, we saw a different read last night, and I knew that what the adjustment was, and we just didn't quite execute, which is normal.
Yeah.
But again, you take Angola. We didn't do real well against pressure, maybe the press or things like that, and we did better, this game. So next week we'll have an opportunity to say, okay, guys, listen, Manchester did this, West Noble did this, and this was the adjustment we needed to make, and then we practiced that, And so this is the first time that these guys are really experiencing as a group some of those things. Last year, we really started to get things clicking, kind of towards the middle or the 3/4 of the way into the season. And then you could just see it felt natural, and it just happened naturally. You don't even think about it anymore. You're like, hey, this guy came this way at me and I went this way, And so last night we kind of fought some things, we kind of fought some things and we looked a little clunky, but we held it together long enough to stay in the game to where we found something that worked, in the fourth quarter. So, yeah, it was good.
You made it. The other thing, Coach, do you teach about the 3-point? When I drive up, my folks used to live in Indy. We'd drive back and forth, and never when I was growing up and never when I was started coaching, did you see anybody shooting or practicing long shots?
Yeah.
Now, you see kids just like 6th, 7th grade or younger shooting threes. How do you get that started?
Well, okay, so
I want to hear this.
Yeah, here's the thing.
Your 3-point theory.
So
Coach Everingham.
I'll again just trying to be open and honest. I do live in the same household as a couple of our players. You guys know that. Everybody knows that's listening, and so, but I'll extend it way beyond that. And so I don't want people to think I'm just talking about the kids that I see every day. But I can tell you that it's reps, man. I'm telling you that whether it's the kids that I live with at home and with Miles and Maddox or others, that I'm telling you when they have equipment now with the gun that we have that shoots the ball back to you and you can shoot, I'm telling you that we have guys in our program, and that's multiple guys, that are shooting hundreds and thousands, tens of thousands of shots. And in a month, in a year's time, it's a lot of repetition. And so you can go, there's a place where I know some of our players go to shoot shots, and they got reps. Our 8th grade players are in the same boat. That there's these different spots around town where people have these things called the guns, the shoot back things.
I didn't know that.
And they're shooting. Honestly, they're shooting. In a 20-30 minute period, they're shooting 400 or 500 shots in a sitting, and they might do that 2 or 3 times a day. They may take 1,500 shots in a day, and if they do that 4 or 5 times a week, you start doing the math, and look, these guys are shooting a lot of shots. And so the great players that we're seeing in our area in northern Indiana over the course of the last 5 years or whatever, and Connor Segan, who we'll see here in a little while, at Central Noble, and Charlie Yoder and some of these other great players, I promise you that they found a gun and they're shooting lots of shots. And so we're just trying to follow that blueprint, and so we got a lot of guys. You watch our JV game too, Weston Hofford and Robbie Finlinson and Jay Finlinson, guys that are out there just stroking the three. And so it really opens up a lot. It's different than what it used to be.
Yeah, because it opens things up for the kid to do the cut. But I'll tell you the thing it opens up that just blows my mind. It opens up the 15-foot jumper. Now, that is the shot that was the shot when you were in school, right?
Yeah.
Bob Cousy coming in and shooting that shot from the elbow. That shot is open again now, and it's because of that gun and those guys on the outside.
Yeah, and kids practicing it. And like you said, I was really interested in how you get them to do that and to be that good at shooting threes. And everybody, when they start out, 6th grade basketball, they're trying to shoot a 3 at 6th grade basketball now. And the one other question I had on that, does that make a difference on who gets to go in to actually play where, if they can, like you really needed, you were 7 points down, and the threes that Miles, which get my Everingham straight, a shot, I mean, that was the game changer right there.
Yeah, and they weren't, you do have to be careful. I'll hit on one thing that you said, the idea that we got these little guys, in our junior warrior program, and last night I'd love to talk about that next segment maybe too, the junior warrior night and some of the other things we had going on. But it is a challenge. I can tell you it's a challenge. I have parents contacting me and telling me like they see our varsity guys out firing threes and I want to be a 3-point shooter. But I'm telling you have to be very careful with that because probably one of the things that I did well as I was raising young shooters is not allowing them to get out there and shoot with poor form,
right?
From a long distance away.
Practice does not make perfect. Perfect practice makes
correct.
Perfect.
And so we had those guys. It took them a while to work their way out to the 3-point line because the first thing that's important, and it's hard to do. It's hard to convince somebody in 5th and 6th grade to be like, we can't shoot threes yet. Why not? Watch this. Yeah. And they'll launch it from their hip, and they don't work on their shooting form. And so. It's really important at a young age, and we try to preach that to our junior warriors and our middle school players. And you look at a middle school player too, and there might be one player on the team that's more developed than the next. And so you might be telling one kid, we don't want you shooting threes, and the other one's like, go ahead and do it. So there's a process of selling that to young kids that obviously we've done really well. Because some of these young guys coming into our program right now are really good shooters.
Just like you just said, Bill, it takes tons and tons of. Give me that phrase again about the
practice does not make perfect. Perfect practice makes perfect.
Wow.
You got to have the form, and then you have to use the form.
That's a good. Have you got the quote on that? Is that going to go down in encyclopedia?
You really want the story on that?
Yeah.
All right. The story on that is that I had a poster of that, about 1 foot tall and about 4 foot long, made, and I put it in the corner of at the doorway going into the studio at WAWC, so that my disc jockeys saw that every day when they walked into that studio, so that they knew that what they prepared had to be right. You couldn't just go in there and do it.
Flip it.
You got to have it ready. You got to have it prepared. Perfect practice makes perfect. That's the story.
I have something to add to that too, and we can give Mr. Dixon all the credit for that particular saying, but I will tell you, there's others that have used that.
Oh, I stole it. I stole it.
Right.
Oh yeah.
I thought that was yours.
No.
You don't get quoted on that.
Theft is the greatest form of flattery. I stole it.
Yeah, and I'll tell you the guy who, in terms of basketball, the guy who used it the best, and he, Al Rhodes would go do these clinics, and I've heard him talk to youth league players, to high school players. I've heard him talk in clinics, and he, as those of you who know him, he's not normal. No, he's a little different.
Yeah, he is.
But he does this thing on the floor, and I've seen him do it over and over and over again because his speech is always the same thing. He hits on that, and what he does is he talks to young kids about, you think you're going and you're putting in the work, and he goes, watch this, I'm going to work hard, and he gives all these attributes that you do when you work out. He's throwing shots behind his head. He's throwing hook shots, and he's starting to sweat, right? And he goes, yeah, I have players coming to me all the time telling me how hard I'm working, And what his point was that you can't just go work hard. You have to work hard the right way, and I think that's what you were saying. So it is important, for me as a head coach and for our coaching staff and our youth league coaches, is to train these guys to give them tools and ways to make sure they're practicing properly. That they're not just going out and firing half-court shots and then coming back inside and be like, I worked out for a half hour, and they don't get anything out of it. So ball handling drills, shooting drills, and things like that, we do all that stuff.
When we come back, we're going to talk a little bit about the life of a high school basketball player. What do they have that's on their plate besides just what we see on that varsity game? We're going to talk about that coming up next here at Coach's Corner on 93.7 FM The Mix and 937themix.com. And welcome back to Coach's Corner on 93.7 FM The Mix and 937themix.com. Talking to the head basketball coach of the Wabasee Warriors, Coach Jon Everingham. Coach, you've got a lot of kids out there on your program now here at the high school level and, well, all the way down into the elementary schools. But basketball isn't all they do. These kids have a full life. I've got to imagine that putting all the pieces together and allowing time for that is difficult, particularly at the high school level, when you've got to have kids with such a devotion to practice and to their teammates.
Yeah, and we have, they're obviously academics first.
Sure.
They're going to school. This is Wabasee High School, and the things that they go through, throughout the day with. Education's different now, and the standardized testing and the things that you have to do in the classroom and the pressures on students and, things like that. It can be a little much at times, for these students. And it's the rigor here at Wabasee. High school is legit, and so we have students in AB classes and dual credits and CTE classes, and it's all across the board in terms of the things that they have to do. And, you take a look at, just the other night on Thursday night, for example, we had practice till 5:15 and they grab something to eat and then they're off. We had 14 guys. I saw a picture posted online of the student section for the girls game. And I was sitting there counting all the guys, and we had like 14 guys that were at the girls game, rooting on the girls.
And
now that's what you want inside of a school. And so I'm sure you could do the same thing last night at our game with the girls supporting the boys. And what about the volleyball games, that the students were at, in the beginning of the season, or football or whatever else, so, but I was thinking at the end when my own kids came home at the end of the night, I'm thinking, when did they have time to do their homework? And they do have homework. And so, it's tough, it does wear on you as a student athlete, the requirements from your classes and the things that you want to do and the things that you get to do and the things you have to do, are a bit much, for students, on the basketball team. So there's, and the coaches too, the coaches are asking you for more time and the commitment, and we try to be respectful of those things. When it's time to rest, we rest, and we don't make 3-hour practices. Back in the day, man.
Oh yeah,
absolutely.
Gosh, I mean, Coach Sorrell, we'd practice till like 6:30, and it's
but with Coach Sorrell, that wouldn't be a problem because you only passed the ball. You never shot.
Right. We work on a lot of passing. You'd be surprised what we did in that practice. Probably me and the teammates would probably tell you what we remember is running. The conditioning was just incredibly different, but we have different types of athletes now because, we got the weight and strength program, during the day. And so it's different now. You don't have to go for 3 hours. I think a good basketball team, by the way, getting sidetracked, but a good basketball team only has to practice 45 minutes.
Really?
And so I really think so.
Wow, you're really modern.
But it's
back
a good,
in the day.
intense 45 minutes.
But
I want to hear the rest of this.
Yeah, if you have a good intense practice for 45, that's all you need to do. Sometimes to get a good intense 45 minutes inside of a practice, it takes 2 hours. And so the better your team gets, the less time you practice. And so, last year when we started to really start to click, we were only practicing about 40 minutes a day. And I know that sounds way crazy.
That does.
Any basketball coach that would be listening to me right now, they'd think I was nuts. But it's true. We only practiced about 30, 40 minutes last year towards the end of the year because we were playing only, 5, 6, 7 guys, and we were getting worn out, And so anyway,
I never thought of that part.
There's a mental and physical toll on these guys, and to think about all the things I talked about in the last segment that you got to know, and the reads and scouting reports, they know who these guys are, just like other teams know who we are. So you're asking them to study. We have the huddle. They can log into
what
the
is
game.
that?
Huddle is is online. So you put actually it's a live feed, video feed from our camera right into the website. So right after the game is over, our players log in, and they can watch the game over.
Wow.
So now a lot of guys will watch you guys' broadcast instead of, but on the road, when we leave West Noble tonight, on the bus ride back, if they wanted to, they can get on their phones and watch the game back. And so, and the other thing too, what Huddle does is it tracks the amount of time that players are on there, so coaches can kind of see. So if you take a day off and you say today's practice, I want you to watch the film back, and you can highlight different areas and draw point arrows.
You can annotate the video.
Yeah, and so you can have players go in there and watch that, and then you can see if they actually did watch it. And so the technology is amazing. And there's a lot of. Anyway, there's a lot of stuff.
We need that for math class. Can I get that for math? Anyway.
Can anybody get into this Huddle thing, or is it just for your kids? Or
it's just for our team.
Just for your team. So they have a password, and they get into this website, and then they watch that game that you've been broadcasting over again.
Yep.
Wow, talk about technology.
It goes well beyond that, too. We have this thing called Huddle Assist, that costs a little more money, but we're heavily supported from our athletic department and fundraisers and stuff like that. But you literally can click on your name and you can watch the 4 assists that you have, the clips. So 1, 2, 3, 4. It takes about 2 minutes, and it automatically we send every game film that we watch, every game film that we get of other teams, we send it in to get broken down. We send our game films in to get broken down. So literally you can click on Bill Dixon and his 4 turnovers that he had, and you can watch. So the other thing
that's
too,
just at the buffet. 1 turnover, 2 turnovers.
I can promise you this here. Manchester, for example, played 2 games. I saw every shot attempt from every one of their players just by clicking on their name and field goal attempts. And so here's how it works. If I watch this Denton guy who was really good, he had 24 points last night. Yep. If he's going to his left on every clip, if I click on all his field goal attempts and he's going left, well, that obviously helps you in terms of scouting. Or if he spins to his left shoulder or whatever it is. So you get a really quick advantage by being able to scout, other teams. The old school way of doing it is going to the game, grabbing a bag of popcorn, and sitting and watching the players. You take notes like this. Today, what you do is you just get on Huddle Assist and you click on their name. You watch the film one time through, and then the second time through, you're clicking on, different stats that you want to see, and shot charts, and it's unbelievably crazy. And even in I'll add this too, even in the NBA, they do that at halftime. They watch clips at halftime, and that's how real time it is.
Sure.
So
wow.
Coach, one of the things that my wife and I did with our 4 kids is we had a big debate, discussion, confrontation, whatever you want to call it, about the difference between spending the time in sports and spending the time academics.
Yeah.
Now, my wife, is almost a PhD in math, and of course, I barely graduated from high school. Just kidding, but and you've got 2 kids. Now, tell me about how you work that out, and tell me about what you think about that.
Yeah, I think the one thing we do value in our program is family too. You think about all the pressures of things that go on inside of a school and in the basketball program and the scouting and the playing and it's mental and physical wear on your body, and the thing that we don't want to leave out of the equation is family, and so we try our very, very best to make sure that we're very strategic in terms of time off, over Thanksgiving break. I talked about that, I think maybe last week or week before, but the Christmas breaks, and I had a good example. I had a mom call me about a family trip that they really wanted to take. They haven't seen this particular side of the family, and I said, look, that's way more important than your son attending a basketball practice, on this particular date. And do we want him here? Yes, absolutely. But we know and understand that that's more important. And so there are things, obviously, there's things way more important in terms of priorities than the game of basketball. And so,
really,
yeah,
I don't know about that.
Yeah, really, there
are really.
There
Go
are.
ahead. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you.
Coming from a former teacher, there, we had a player too in the preseason that we didn't allow to participate because a grade in the class wasn't the way it should be. We brought a desk out, and I'm sure most programs do it that way. But you got to
do that.
If you can't make it in certain areas, then it's just not going to work out for you. But I think family is certainly one of those areas that we because honestly sometimes the kids given a choice to go do this. A family thing or come to practice, they might choose practice. And so sometimes it's me saying, look, sorry, I know what you want to do, but you're going to go with your family and you're going to go do this and you're going to have a great time. And so I had a dad call me about the Grace game the other night that wanted to take, his son to the Grace game. And I was like, absolutely. Well, can they get out of practices? Yes, go and have a great time with your son. And so those are things that I think if there's an open line of communication and not only players but parents understand the full picture of the type of kid that we're trying to help, and those calls are easy. Now you may have a kid, and I have in the past, not on this team, but you may have a kid that comes to you and says, I got a big date tonight. It's Friday night. Coach, I need out of practice early. I got to go get ready. And there's other things that are not a higher priority, and those are lessons that sometimes are hard to teach young kids as well. But we do talk a lot about that. So. Sometimes there's kids that want to do other things, and we have to, kind of redirect them there on that. But
that's part of your idea of a coach too. I mean, that's your job.
Yeah,
you have to redirect them and make good citizens and good work ethics with these kids. I mean, it's what you got to do.
Yeah, and each kid is different, so you have to mold that for each, and it's not 12. I'm not sure 36. I think in the program right now.
Yeah, we do. Yeah, and managers included, in that. So, and I will tell you too, you guys have been in classrooms, and so you might be sitting in your classroom and you got 36 students. Well, you're probably not going to reach all of them, right? And there's certain style of student that you might reach the best, right?
Yeah.
And so, and so when kids go throughout the day, they're going to hit 5 or 6 different teachers, and eventually they're going to connect with the teacher. That's going to be an amazing experience for them and the teachers. The same thing goes on in our program. The importance of having really good people as coaches. It's not just me.
And a variety of them.
And a variety of them that connect with students in different ways. We bring in Scott Beasley this year, and Nate O'Connell, Chad Hoffert, Scott Hetrick, and Pat O'Connell. And all of those guys connect with different types of players. And so I don't, you can sit here and I'd be lying to say I connect with every player every year, but it's just that's not the truth. That's why we have a staff. and so it's important to have good people on your staff so that we're doing what we're here for, and that's making a difference in young people's lives.
And we'll talk about that and how we're going to apply it to West Noble tonight. That's where we're headed for basketball this evening. That's next here on Coach's Corner on 93.7 FM The Mix and 937themix.com. And welcome back to Coach's Corner on 93.7 FM The Mix and 937themix.com as we talk to the head basketball coach of the Wabasee Warriors, Coach Jon Everingham. Tonight, Coach, we make the short trip to meet our neighbors to the east, the West Noble Chargers. And that's a program that has had big highs and big lows. Right now, they seem to be on a bit of an uptick.
They are, for sure. Played in the sectional championship game last year, and they got... I truly believe this. They got one of the better players in Northern Indiana up there in Austin Kripe. He's being heavily recruited, at the NAIA level.
Yeah.
He's 6'3", 6'4", and he is lightning fast. And he can shoot the basketball. He's averaging right now 29.5 points a game.
Wow.
29.5 points a game. So let that settle in before we get over there tonight.
Jeez.
He's going to be really tough to stop. And as a matter of fact, we may not be able to stop him. And so, Coach and I are going to meet here shortly and start to we watched film this week, and we know who they are. We know who their players are, but we got to finalize, exactly what we're going to do when we get over there tonight. But, it all starts, with him. But he's got a surrounding cast that's pretty good too. Nevin Farrow, is 6'5" point guard. Then they got that Julio Macias who is going to Purdue on a full ride scholarship to kick field goals and extra points. And he's at 6'5", and when he jumps through the air, he's an athlete, man. And he jumps through the air. He dunked one the other night. I saw on film against Bethany, and just flushed it right through. And so, they got the Beer kid on the inside is a good, strong 6'2", just a beast of a dude who actually comes over here to do our auto mechanics, program. I saw him walking through. I said, "Hey, man, how you doing? Look forward to seeing you, Saturday night." So they got players, and they're big and physical and tall and certainly, like you said, the West Noble program, traditionally has been up and down a little bit, and they are on an uptick right now. And I know they're very excited. They're 2-0. They got a stud in Kripe that's averaging the points, and defensively he's got super quick hands, and he's definitely going to be playing, at the next level. So we got our work cut out for us tonight.
Sometimes when you run into a team like that, you have to make the decision early. Are we going to try to take away the main weapon, or are we going to try and take away everything around the main weapon?
Right. And I think it's pretty clear, there's other teams, even this year and last year too, he's a senior, so we're very familiar with him and what he can do. He's better now than he was last year, and he was really good last year. And so teams have tried everything. They've tried to take him away, and you do have to be careful, because if you got a player that you try to stop and you don't, then you've given up everything.
Yeah.
And so, you do have to sometimes kind of concede. Say, hey, okay, fine, you can score your 30, and maybe you get 35, I don't know, but we don't care how many you have. We care about how many your team has. And so that's certainly something that we're going to be thinking about tonight, and who's guarding him, and so, there's times too when you think, well, it's not a no-brainer to put your best defender on their best player. Because if you think about, well, he's going to beat our best player, why don't we take our best defender and put him on a second best player? So we actually have an advantage over that one. And so that's something we're going to take a look at, here in a little bit, and see who's actually going to guard him. We could put Miles on him. Honestly, Miles is not our best defender. He's probably our third best defender. But if he could just hold the fort down with him and not let him explode for 50 points, it'd probably be just as good as about anybody else. But we could put our best defenders, Welty and Dukes, we could put those two guys on the second and third options, and take care of those guys, like you said. So there's certainly some strategy that's going to be going on tonight, and we may throw the kitchen sink at them too, and put different guys on them, and keep some fresh guys on them. And Peyton Felger, is another option that could be.
I've never seen a kid come back from an ankle injury as well as he's come back from that one, because that was a nasty, nasty problem.
Yeah. He got up on a motorbike and went over a jump and just destroyed his ankle, and that's why nobody knows about him, because he didn't play last year. He played a little bit there on the JV team at the end, but
he still couldn't go full bore.
No, even at the beginning of this year, he was still limping just a little bit in the preseason, and we talked to him about that, and he worked with the trainer. But you can see he gets in now, and he can play some basketball, and he fulfills a role for us, coming off the bench where. Again, you've seen him guard a big guy. I'm talking to you guys about him guarding the other team's best player.
You had him on that 6'5" kid Benton for part of last night.
Yep, and he can guard Kripe too. And again, he's not going to stop him, but he might be able to control him just a little bit, and that's what we're looking for probably tonight.
In that type of a situation, the one thing that really comes to your benefit, I think, correct me if I'm wrong, your team can really go at the passing lanes. And if they can't get the ball to this Kripe kid, then that's just as good as him losing the ball.
I was talking to somebody on the phone about that. They said, don't let him get it, but he's so good at back cutting. And he gets back cuts after back cut.
Explain what a back cut is.
Yeah, it almost looks like if he's going to go, he really fakes you out. He really kind of baits you into thinking, here, I'm going to go get the ball, you can deny, and then boom, he's lightning fast. And so he just in a split second, he cuts back door, and you're dead. And so, we'll have to decide on whether we're going to try to, maybe a guy like Ethan Carey with his quickness, that we had on last year's team could keep him from getting the ball but I'm not sure we have somebody like that this year.
Well, you don't
right
see
now.
that kind of quickness very
that's
often.
true. Yeah, very true. So, he does have a supporting cast, and I think that's probably, something to talk about, that they do have other players around him, and we'll have to find matchups. They're big, man.
Well, the Macias kid is huge.
He is.
And he's a place kicker.
I know.
I mean, he looks like he ought to be a defensive tackle.
Can you imagine getting a full ride to Purdue, being a place kicker, and being excellent? He could go a lot of different places playing basketball, but he chooses,
Yep. Well, here's the thing. I bet you if you talk to that kid, he's got dreams of playing on Sundays. Mm-hmm. And, and I think his leg is that good that he's going to go over to Purdue thinking that, if he gets better and better and better, that he could play in the NFL.
Well, and West Noble's got that history too.
Yeah. So I know they're excited that he's on the basketball team, but that clearly is his second, at least his second sport. And so anyway, but he's an athlete, man. Mm-hmm. And sometimes you think of a place kicker not being an athlete, but he's an athlete. And so, 6'5", probably not your prototypical kicker, but he's an athlete. And so again, the Beer kid gave him great minutes in the sectional final last year and late in the season. And again, that Nevin Farrow, I actually coached him and a couple other kids way back in the day.
Why did you do that?
Yeah, I know. Well, we had some guys from different schools that we did some things. I'm friends with their athletic director over there. But anyway, we knew he was going to be a very special player. He's fast. He's quick. He'll run the point for him a lot, tonight, Nevin will. And he's developing his outside shot. And so they have some weapons over there, and they're favored to win tonight, and probably deservingly so after, having a good season and a good player. So it'd be a tough one tonight.
Well, Coach, I was just thinking about that. How do you know? I know back in the day, a couple hundred years ago, you had a 2-3 zone, a 2-3 zone, and a 3-2 zone, and man, and that was it.
Yeah.
And now I look around and well, what kind of? How do you guys? And you and O'Connell, oh man, you talk about a huge brain trust there. And the way you mix it up, and you got to probably tonight against West Noble, you're going to have to make some really important defensive decisions,
especially having played as hard as we did defensively in that comeback last night.
Yes,
and that's a really good point too. And the first question there, I think professional development, education, professional development. Coaches do that too, and you study things online, you go to clinics, and you talk to other coaches. You talk to other coaches, and I honestly, I saw Oak Hill on film against Manchester, and I got a call placed, to their coach because I want to know exactly what they're doing and why they're doing it and how they're doing it. And I went a couple years ago, Coach O'Connell and I, we went down to Bluffton, and we met with Coach Benedict and sat with him for 3 or 4 hours and had lunch and went to a couple different places, but just talking about overall program development. So, people don't know that stuff, but we do take it very serious, and we're trying to do the very best we can for these kids. And so, but the second part you said, Bill, was, last night's game and the energy level that we exerted last night. West Noble did not play last night. And so it's going to be very interesting. Look, I don't know if we're going to come out and lay an egg tonight, and it's the first time that a lot of these guys have played back-to-back nights, and it was emotional last night.
It was very emotional.
And so I don't know how we're going to respond. I have no idea. We'll find out, and I think that's going to be the message to the team. Look,
that's another thing with your young kids. I mean, it's not just the first time this year. For some of these kids, it's the first time ever.
Yes. So you spend all week talking about Manchester and the scouting reports and who these players are and what way we're going to force them and what defense we're going to play. And then you turn around. We have to do what we did in a week. We got to do that in about 30 minutes. So I was thinking the other day, it's like, look, because I was telling O'Connell, we got to do this. We can do this, and we can stop them this way. And he goes, no, we can't. Because we haven't practiced that. He goes, you're right. That would work. But we don't know how to do that yet. And so it's kind of like the rookie quarterback coming in the NFL, and the offensive coordinator is saying, hey, if we want to score more touchdowns, we need to do these things. But then that particular quarterback's not ready for the full playbook yet. That's where we're at right now. We have some things that we can dream up that would work for tonight, but we're just not going to be able to pull it, out of our back pocket to do it yet because we haven't practiced. We don't know how to do that stuff. So we got to stick with what we know. And I've been telling the team and our coaches, the same thing. Let's be patient with our development, and let's get that playbook rolled out at a rate in which we can be successful. Because if you try to roll things out one after another, you're not going to be good at anything.
That's right.
And so we got to get good in certain areas, and then we can start adding. And so that's why I think we can get better quickly this season, is because we'll continue to roll out some of these things.
Some of the kids, a lot of the kids, West Noble and Wawasee are kind of close together. So a lot of these kids know each other. And talk about that a little bit. I mean, they've played T-ball. They've played, youth, especially over here, because Wawasee Syracuse is full of those youth programs. So a lot of people from West Noble, then our kids know their kids.
They do, and they play with them, even sometimes in AAU stuff. And I know Keaton and Austin Kripe know each other very well, and I'm sure have crossed paths on the same team, at Tipping Point or down in Fort Wayne or whatever. And so, you do the proximity to our schools and where they're going for individual workouts and things like that. I know, Miles and Maddox have played with Luke Skimmerhorn and Nevin Farrow and on the same team, and so they do know each other, and they do grow up together and things like that. Even though they're we don't go to the same school, obviously they're neighboring schools, and we know them very well. The other thing too is, Keaton's been playing against Austin, for quite some time.
Right.
And so they've had some battles, and I can tell you,
it's gonna be good.
It got a little chippy.
No.
I'm telling you, it got a little chippy
a
couple games last year, so that'll be something to look at. I know Keaton desperately would like to guard him tonight, but like I said, we got to make that decision.
Oh man, you and O'Connell, I'd love to hear that. Will you record that and put that on the pride now?
Well, that's the big game tonight. It's the Wawasee Warriors will get on the bus and travel over to Ligonier to take on the West Noble Chargers. Now, we'd love to have you by the radio for that game. We'll have it right here on 93.7 FM at The Mix and on 937themix.com. But the better place to enjoy that game is at West Noble High School. The JV will be at 6:15. The varsity will play right around 7:30. Always amazing to the home team when the visiting team brings a big crowd. Always makes a big impression. So if you could come over and join us in Ligonier tonight at that big West Noble game, we would very much love to have you in the gym for that. Coach Everingham, thank you very much for being with us today. Coach Szynal, thanks for coming along. This is Coach's Corner on 93.7 FM The Mix, WRWTLP, Syracuse.